Hey, everybody, and welcome to the start of the Premodern Showdown Series 2. I'm Michael Hoyp. I'm joined tonight by Flint Espil. Say hi, Flint.
Hi, everybody.
All right, so a lot of you have been waiting, and we are very excited to present the second edition of the Premodern Showdown Series. So, Flint, for the first time viewers or watchers, do you want to give us a quick rundown of what the Premodern Showdown Series is and what's a little bit different of the second one compared to the first?
Definitely. So this is a league essentially with 8 players, and everybody will play each other player once over the course of 7 weeks. We'll play on Monday and Wednesday nights at 9:30 p.m. Eastern, and each player has created 3 decks. And prior to the match, all deck lists are public, and each player can ban one of their opponent's decks going into it, and then decide which of their 2 remaining decks they want to play. Gabe and Shawn are about to face off, and they know which decks have been banned, but they don't know which of their opponent's 2 decks their opponent decided to play. So there's a little bit of suspense going into this. Um, in terms of the challenge this time around, so when we did the first series, we had very spiky decks. We told people to, bring tier 1 decks to the table. People could be creative if they wanted, but for the most part, we saw a lot of the stronger decks in pre-modern. This time around, we wanted to see something different. And so we asked people to brew decks, and we specifically invited people who are known for their brewing abilities and are also, of course, over here in the States where the time zone isn't an issue. But hey, European players, maybe someday we can make something work. But the rule was you couldn't bring a deck to the series that had made a top 8 in one of the monthlies or had won a major tournament. And so, for the most part, we have 24 original decks, or at least semi-original decks. We'll let the viewers decide how different some of these lists actually are. They're all posted in Facebook, so you can find them there. But we should get to see a lot of cards that players aren't used to seeing and deck ideas that players aren't used to seeing. So that's the spin this time around.
All right, so you can see our schedule. This is for this week. We're starting off tonight with Shawn Sullivan against Gabe Farkas, and then later tonight we'll have Aaron Dix against Bryan Manolakos. So let's go over to our ban screen. So Flint talked about that the opponents or the players have 3 decks available, and then a player can like strike a deck, so they're not able to bring those. So Shawn, the 3 decks that he has is this Unnatural Spirit Control, Prose Bloom, and then Torpor's V. And so Gabe elected to ban the Unnatural Spirit Control deck. So Shawn cannot bring that deck tonight. He has a choice between the other two. Shawn, on the other hand, banned the Fairies deck that was available to Gabe. So now the other decks available to him are Netherhops and Dothy Aggro. So Shawn, based on this information, Shawn has selected to play Prose Bloom tonight. And then Gabe is playing the Dothy Aggro deck. So let's get a
Mike, Mike, I'm so excited to see Prosplum.
okay.
I'm so excited to see Prosplum.
Yeah, we'll see if the old glory can relive in the Premodern Showdown series too. All right, so we'll jump over the decks. We'll get a good idea of what the two players are bringing. So the Pros Bloom. So this is just a classic combo deck that was played back in the Mirage Day. That's kind of been updated a little bit with the pre-modern card selection. So do you want to talk about kind of how the combo works, Flint?
Yeah, and I'll be kind of quick here. The way it works is you get a squandered resources out first, which is the 1 green, 1 black enchantment that lets you sack lands and add mana, any mana to your mana pool that that land can produce. So you get that on the table. You tap your lands, you sack your lands, then you play a natural balance, which lets any player who doesn't have, well, if you have fewer than 5 basic lands in play, you can search your library for up to 5 basic lands and put them into play. If you have more than 5 basic lands into play, you have to sacrifice down to 5 lands in play, and it's for both players. So if your opponent has 10 lands in play and you have 3, you could search for 2. They would have to sack 5. But again, they have to be basic lands that you search for. So you natural balance, then you tap all your lands again. You sack them all to squandered resources. Ideally, you either play another natural balance or you get a Cadaverous Bloom on the table, which lets you exile cards in your hand to either add 2 green or 2 black to your mana pool. And so basically, you go through this chain of events where you are playing lands, sacking lands, and then building up some mana to eventually cast a Prosperity, draw a bunch of cards, exile those to Cadaverous Bloom, keep, rinse and repeat, and then you eventually kill them with a drain life. This is arguably the first combo deck in Magic, and it's certainly the combo deck that influenced me more than any other combo deck, if not more than any other deck I've ever seen played when I was younger. And so that's why I'm super nostalgic for it. Will it be any good? Who's to say, right? This series isn't as spiky as the first, but that's the basic idea of the deck.
All right, I'll jump over to Gabe's deck, which is a little bit more simplistic. It's a little bit straightforward of what it's trying to do. This is the Dothy aggro list, and it's kind of like a black aggro deck. The components that are a little bit different in it, you see the Carrion Feeders and the Necrotogs and the Phyrexian Ghouls. Excuse me. So once it has creatures in play, if it's able to go wide and the opponent has a bunch of creatures that are blocking, if one gets through, then you might be able to chain a bunch of damage. This also can be done by sneaking a creature through with, I can't even remember, Dothy Embrace. You can give a creature shadow. But the nice little synergies is Carrion Feeder or Phyrexian Ghoul can sacrifice creatures, and then Necrotog can remove them from the graveyard to get really big. So it's lots of little black creatures and a little bit of disruption and just a lot of speed. So it's just trying to kill your opponent as quick as possible. Is there anything else you wanted to add there, Flint?
Nope. I think we're good.
Okay, so we'll get right over to the match. Who is on the play?
Gabe is on the play.
Okay, if you want to let our players know that they can get started, Gabe with the Dothy aggro deck, which is pretty important for the aggressive deck to be on the play. So I'm sure Gabe is happy of how that die roll went.
Yes, I'm sure he is. So it looks like neither player mulliganed, by the way.
Okay.
Ooh, ooh, ooh. Dark Ritual to start for Gabe. Scary openers we talked about recently. So he's going Carrion Feeder and Nantuko Shade. Is that right?
Yep. So yeah, the Dark Ritual is really important for the black aggro decks because the difference between deploying a threat like a 3-drop, or here we have a 1-drop and a 2-drop on turn 1 as compared to curving out, can just make a huge different amount of damage. Just they're able to attack sooner, or your opponent isn't able to deploy their removal spells, and the damage that comes in quick can really add up. So even if Gabe doesn't commit anything to the board right now, he'd be able to attack. If he has like another land, then he could attack for 5 next turn, and so he could just, he's on the Premodern deck is already on a clock, as we can see.
Yeah, you can see Shawn, he's thinking that, right? He's looking at his hand, all right, what's my sequence here? What's my line? Given that I know I have this clock of at least this much per turn, Lord knows what he plays next turn, if he pumps or not. So thinking about his opener, decides to deploy the Lotus Petal. Was he worried about discard perhaps, or?
Yeah, that would, yeah, I think that'd be the biggest reason. But I mean, I guess there isn't really a way that Gabe can punish him by putting it into play, and it's not like Storm matters, so it's safer on the battlefield than in his hand. I guess the one reason is Cadaverous Plume, it might be worth 2 mana instead of 1 in your hand. Okay, we see on Gabe's side is Bad Moon. So this is an Anthem effect that only affects black creatures, and it's a nice way for Gabe to it can do 2 things. It can give your creatures an attack that basically kind of has haste because the creatures in play don't have so many sickness, so a little boost there. And then also it's a way against decks that might have more removal spells or wraths that he can kind of play into the board a little bit without getting punished from a sweeper effect.
Just love the art on it too, right? Such a classic Magic card.
Yeah.
And I big fan of the art.
So it looks like Gabe is wanting to see what. Okay, so Mana Leak is a response that Shawn has to slow down the pressure, and then he's going to attack for 3.
You can see him just like, oh, do I get to hit you? Do I get to hit you? He's like so excited to get in there. Oh, all right. So second turn, squandered resources. It's a good start for Shawn.
Yes.
One off the City of Blast, though, of course, there. So down to 16.
Let's bring up the squandered resources. So yeah, this 2-mana enchantment is one of the important pieces. It's kind of probably the most important mana engine part of the deck, because of the other two are natural balance and then the cadaverous bloom.
So we see a swing in here, putting Shawn to 13, and then Gabe follows it up with a Phyrexian Negator. Is pretty good in this matchup.
Yeah, when there's no removal spells or damage spells and or creatures that you're really afraid of, the negator is really powerful. I guess there could be a drain life that could spell trouble if cadaverous bloom and then exile some cards and then drain life came into play.
It technically does deal damage, right? Um, let's see here. Oh, thanks, folks in chat. We're glad to be back as well. We're able to take some time off, and we're really excited about this series. So welcome.
Yeah, we have a subscription from Kevin Castorino saying "Go Pros Bloom." So cheering for Shawn tonight. And then we did have a bunch of other follows earlier. So Arin Jitsu, I Blossom, and Old School Miser. Thank you for the follows.
All right, so taking one from City of Brass and going to 12 here, sacking some lands. Oh, and there's the bloom.
All right.
So Gabe is representing 11 next turn at least, right? So it looks like Shawn's definitely going to start to make a move here. And I believe those cards are exiled, right? They need to go not into the graveyard.
With the Cadaverous Bloom? Yes.
Yeah. I'll just message him and let him know.
Okay, so is Shawn able to, so I'm guessing he has a natural balance here is probably what we're looking at. But then the thing is he can't pass the turn because then he'd just be dead, because we talked about it was 11 on the board as it is, and if Gabe gets 2 extra mana, then he has enough for lethal. So yep, here we see that natural balance.
You may still see a drain life on the negator too. Who knows?
All right, so yep, this is going to basically get each player up to five lands, or down to 5 lands if that's the case. So with the squandered resources and natural balance, that's a really powerful mana engine. So if Shawn has one of the card draw spells, Infernal Contract or Prosperity, then he can likely continue to go off. And given that he exiled an Infernal Contract, I think I might have said Darkness. I'm guessing he has a Prosperity in his hand.
Scooping.
Oh.
Ron brings up a good point, though. I mean, technically, Gabe could just sack the negator to the.
Oh, sure. There was a carrion feeder. Yeah, that is a good point. So Shawn just didn't have anything after.
Yeah, it seems like maybe he was just out of gas.
Okay. Well, let's jump over to our decks and we can see if the sideboards are going to change anything. So that definitely was a very quick start from the black deck, and I don't think it's really going to get any slower. So what cards that Shawn has I think Innocent Blood and Pernicious Deed, I guess, are the cards that seem the most appealing of way to interact with the creatures. Though Innocent Blood, I think you just would need to play it because it's so cheap. I mean, you might not always get the most effective creature, but it also gives you a safeguard against things like turn 1 Dark Ritual, Phyrexian Negator.
Absolutely, yeah. I think the Innocent Bloods definitely come in, and then I would bring in the Deeds as well. Maybe it's too slow, maybe it's not, right? It just kind of depends on what Shawn's hand looks like, but that's probably going to be it.
The issue is like, how do you sideboard with this deck? It's tricky to take out cards because the deck list is kind of tight. Like each card kind of needs to be like, when it's an A plus B plus C kind of deck, you need all those cards, and redundancy is important. I mean, maybe mana leaks are something that might come out. I don't know. Like a lot of the threats that Gabe's able to deploy are pretty quick, and you might not have the mana leak right away.
Yeah, maybe leaks. maybe plagiarize.
Okay. All right.
Um,
So we're expecting some amount of removal to come in for Shawn to slow down Gabe. Let's go over to Gabe's
yeah.
list.
All right.
So Diabolic Edict, not very important. The Powder Keg doesn't interact, it just does artifacts and creatures, so that doesn't seem very relevant. Tasabu's Web doesn't hit any of the
No,
lands.
I think it's just Cabal Therapy.
Yep, Withered Wretch. You could bring in a Karavek Spite. I guess you might be a little bit afraid of Manalik, but um, I guess, yeah. So are there any cards that aren't very appealing? I guess the Dothy Embrace is probably a card that you don't need against the deck without any creatures.
Agreed. Vendetta's no good either.
Sure. So there's some cards that Gabe can take out pretty easily. So
Yeah, so he could side out those 5 for the 3 therapies and the 2 spites.
yeah, so I think things were pretty good for Gabe, and I think he improves more after sideboard.
Yeah. I'll let them know that they could start game 2
Sure.
whenever.
Yeah, it looks like they're still making some last minute sideboard decisions. I'm gonna jump over to our some of our player intro cards. This is just so we can get to know the players a little bit. You might have seen these on the Facebook group, but this is how we introduced the players that were participating. But we have some cheeky little quips that are informational tidbits for each of the players that we have.
And remind me, why did we go with Pangolin? Is that because Gabe actually ran Prowling Pangolin in one of his decks?
Yeah, Gabe plays a lot of Dead Guy Ale, which is a black-white aggro control deck, and he was originally playing Prowling Pangolin, which is an onslaught card, a 5 mana 6/5 that your opponent can choose to sacrifice 3 creatures when it comes into play, and if they do, then Pangolin dies. Mostly because I think the idea is most decks won't have the luxury to sacrifice 3 creatures, so it would just be a 6 mana 6/5 that would be black. And so with Dark Rituals, I think he powered those out, and so I think he wrote an article. He might have top aided back in the day with the the Dead Guy Ale deck. So that was the Pangolin reference.
And for those of you who are newer to the pre-modern scene, Facebook groups, etc., maybe you haven't interacted with these 2 players as much, but they are both Magic the Gathering encyclopedias. So, Gabe will always post these random cards for decks, and we're all like, why does he want to brew with that? Or like, oh, what a random card. But, sometimes he hits gold. And I mean, I think he was the one who made the suggestion to the zombie deck that, Robin Lund and Bryan Manolakos and, some of their group ended up running Shepherd Rot, right? He recommended that
Mm-hmm.
one, I think. Um, and he's very creative. He knows a lot of these esoteric cards. So this is the perfect fit for him. And I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about Sean's background. Mike might
Yeah.
give a more formal introduction.
So I know Sean's presence mostly in the old school community, and he the creativeness I know is from a tournament organizer perspective, and he has run some really interesting old school tournaments, and they're almost like experiences. I want to say is like a better way to describe it, because the most recent one I think had to do with the Maze's End or the Maze of Ith, and it was not a traditional tournament by the winner was just who performed the best, but after each round that you won, you received a clue, and so the goal was to solve a puzzle that you would get information by winning games or matches. So and they weren't like timed rounds, they weren't set. So if you're still playing a long match, you might have opponents that have already finished 2 matches. So there's really different elements that come into deck building and playing in that kind of environment. And so it's those creative different thoughts that are really cool. So it looks like our players are just finishing shuffling up. I'm going to
Yeah.
switch over
It's
to our play screen.
Yeah, Sean's gonna keep, but it looks like Gabe is gonna take a mulligan.
Okay. So there's still a little bit of hope for our Crossbloom fans. A little bit slower draw from Gabe is what they're hoping for, and if Shawn kept 7, then that's we can be optimistic.
Go Crossbone. Go Crossbone. I like Gabe, but I love Crossbone.
So did we make any alternative rules that Sean's just able to like put certain cards that he prefers on his lap whenever he wants? Is that something that
Yeah,
comes with the
Mike.
pros bloom that you just have that availability?
So I probably most of you get that reference, but Mike Long was a famous, some might say infamous, early Magic the Gathering pro, and one of the was it the finals I think where they found an extra
I don't think it was in the
2,000.
finals. I don't know exactly when it happened, but yeah,
Gosh,
the urban legend is that he would just they call it like the lap tutor or vampiric tutor on his lap. That he'd just be able to put the card on his lap and draw that when he wants.
oh goodness. All right, so we see a City of Brass here from Sean. He's gonna go down to 19 and play the best card in pre-modern.
All right, Duress, here it is. So what are we looking at?
Belonging. We got a ritual and a therapy, and then he's got a carnophage and a is it a Dothy Slayer? Which
Yes, it looks like a Dothy Slayer. The 2/2 shadow has to attack every turn. I thought those were 4 swamps, and I was thinking, I'm like, well, that hand doesn't seem that good. But I guess he split it into piles of which one he can take and which one he can't. This is kind of interesting. I think I take the Dark Ritual. I guess it might depend a little bit on your hand and like if you think that the first card he names with Cabal Therapy you take, but the taking the speed out of with the Dark Ritual I think could save him
yeah.
a lot of life.
Well, and even if he now if he Cabal Therapies his turn, he's not playing a creature, right? So he's not gonna be
Mhm.
pressuring. You might I might argue that maybe you wait unless you wanna grab squandered resources, right? You maybe get some pressure on the board, and then would you maybe you Cabal Therapy the next turn? Or
I would start with Carnophage and then Dothy Slayer. I wouldn't expect my opponent to be going off on their third turn that often. I feel like
yeah,
the Prosplum is closer to a 4 or 5, so I would probably be putting the threats into play because the Cabal Therapy. I mean, if you're naming like squandered resources, then I can see it playing right now. But if you want to name like any other card, then I think you need to wait.
yeah. I have to imagine Sean just keeps him up here.
Yeah,
But it looks like Gabe's gonna write him down regardless.
take some notes. So we have a Prosperity, a Forest, the Infernal Contract. Is that a Naturalize?
I think it's a naturalize. So it's drain life, prosperity, naturalize, natural balance.
Okay.
So maybe Gabe wanted to therapy, carnophage therapy. Maybe that was his line. It feels pretty bad to miss on the first one though.
Yeah.
So it looks like he is gonna maybe therapy here and take the natural balance would be my guess. Well, maybe the prosperity, but it's still what he if he's not pressuring if he does that, right?
Yeah. So if he doesn't have another creature, is he just preferring to get rid of the Carnophage because it deals him damage?
Maybe. I mean, I would almost wait here, right? I would wait and then attack next turn and then flash it back because you have an opportunity to hit one more card. And prosperity is not bad if it gets played, right?
Hmm.
It's I you're probably going to take the natural balance.
Okay, so he took the card draw engine. He took Infernal Contract.
I think that's drain. Isn't that drain life?
Is that Drain Life? Oh,
It
maybe
would
I'm
be
getting the
really
arts.
broad
You might
drain life.
you might be right. Okay, I'm getting the arts mixed up.
No worries. Mike Harris said that Mike Long move is called the root water take. Nice.
All right, so now we have a Dothy Slayer in play. So here's a little bit of a clock, but um, compared to the last game, Sean has a lot more time to set up.
Yeah, and we know that he's sitting on a mana leak here too, so he has some say in the extent to which Gabe gets to develop his board. Now, granted, he still needs to draw some action, right? He really needs to get a squandered resources, but he's in such a better position this time.
Yeah, he's got a lot more breathing room.
All right, so Sean's at 17.
Yep.
Perfect.
All right, so is Gabe thinking about which I mean, most of the time with this deck, it's you just want to curve out. I guess the biggest key is like when you're firing off those discard spells. But so I would think that's maybe what he's thinking about, because otherwise it's usually pretty straightforward if you just want to play to the board and deal as much damage as you can. All right, so here's another Cabal Therapy, and this, given that he knows this much and has a creature in play, um, pretty important.
Oh, wow. Yeah, so Shawn let it resolve, and Gabe take the naturalize, right?
What is
Oh, innocent blood going down to 16.
what is Gabe worried about the naturalize for?
He's got to protect his Dothy embraces. I mean, I'm guessing Bad Moon, but that's really the only card in the deck, right?
I can't think of anything else. I'm not.
Maybe he's got a Bad Moon in his hand. I mean, I don't know if that's correct. I mean, I think I still might take maybe the Prosperity, or maybe even the Mana Leak if you want to flash it back.
Right, so the little carrion feeder that could, he's gonna chip away. Sean's at 15.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Sean's okay with this exchange. I mean, given that he's had a lot more time, he's not really under any pressure. And so if Gabe has, does he just have 3 drops in his hand? Like, I mean, if he's not deploying his threats in his hand, I feel like that's the only other possibility, right?
Yeah, it's really weird for him not to be playing any spells, right? He's got to apply pressure. He's clearly the beat down here. So it could be a situation where maybe he's working with some Necrotogs, some
Negators, some Caravexis Bite. All right, so we see the third swamp, and the Phyrexian Ghoul. That's the one we didn't name. All right, I need to know from everyone. Do we prefer the classic Phyrexian Ghoul, or do we opt for the Nantuko Shade, or not Nantuko Husk? Which one are you more fond of?
I'm more fond of the Ghoul, I think, just because of the role in like the OG Full English Breakfast deck. Um, but I do like the art on Nantuko Husk as well. I think it's a cool card.
All right, I'm a husky boy. I I grew up in the Onslaught age, and I played a lot of Onslaught. So the Husk I saw before I ever saw the Phyrexian Ghoul.
Fair enough. Fair enough. It's a cool card.
Plus,
Right.
plus there was a
Go.
standard era where Ghost Dad and Nantuko Husk was a card in that one.
So it looks like Sean's just going to run out the Bloom here. He's sacking the pedal. He's taking his point. He's going to 12. All right. So he's playing the Bloom. So he really wants to. I mean, technically, he doesn't have to go off next turn, but I'm guessing he really just wants to Prosperity and then try to Prosperity into um, a resources or maybe another Prosperity.
Yeah, I mean, like he can do, if he's drawing another card, he can exile the Mana Leak. And I'm trying to think it's I'm not sure exactly the best way to optimize things in terms of if you use natural balance to get another land, or I guess that's not that good there. Yeah, I guess he's probably just exiling it for mana at that point, just to draw some more cards.
So we didn't talk about Dystopia because technically, I guess it does get green permanents as well, right?
Mm-hmm. Okay, so that seems like the reason to take naturalize. That makes sense.
I always think the Dystopia is just white cards, but yeah, you can totally get the Bloom with that.
All right, so Dystopia. Okay. Yeah, so this is one of the few ways that black decks have to deal with white and green enchantments. So it's definitely very powerful.
Yeah. Oh, and there's the resources.
Yeah, that would have
So
been probably that would have been game over if the Dystopia didn't come down last turn, and it's still pretty good here because okay, let's see how much mana is he able to make.
6 right here, right? So he tapped the 2 islands for the 2 blue. He's going to sack 4 lands. He's going to get 2 blue, 1 of any color, and a green.
Mm-hmm. And he can even, so he could, they come into play untapped, right?
Correct.
And so, and then he's able to tap those and sack those too, if he needed, if he needed extra cards from the for the prosperity.
Yep. Natural Balance is such a cool card.
Yes.
So he tapped 2 blue, then he sacked all 4 lands. So 6 mana, he used 4, right? So 2, and then he's got 10 here. So 12. Oh, Ron's got it in chat. Thanks, Ron. 12 mana. And I love Aaron Dix's comment here in chat. Sack everything and cross fingers. Like, that's how this deck plays. You don't always win, right? So he's in a decent spot, but you can stall out.
I guess the biggest decision that he needs to make is whether he wants to like use all his mana for the prosperity right away. I guess you wouldn't do it right away. I mean, you need to cast some amount of spells. You need to either able to cast a Cadaverous Bloom or a Natural Balance, I think, after this prosperity. So he needs to have 4 to 5 mana available, right?
Yep.
All right, we got dice moving around, indicating how much mana he has.
For 5, right? So because it's 1 blue plus 5 mana, that's 6. He'll have 5 left over, so he can play a bloom if he draws one. Oh, he had another Natural Balance? Oh, never mind.
All right, so that's...
So he went down to 8, right, to cast the Natural Balance.
And then he gets 10.
More.
Okay.
So he'll get to 18. So now he can prosperity for 12.
Yep. So is there anything... I guess the only thing that Shawn might be worried from the spot, because Gabe has 1 swamp open, is the combination of Dark Ritual and Karavek's Spite. I feel like that's like the only interaction that I think Gabe would have on Shawn's turn, right? But yeah. You might be, I mean, you probably have a mana leak at that point, though, so...
he definitely has 1 in his hand.
Yeah. I was thinking, I guess I was thinking he had a Cad Bloom in play, but that it would be exiled, but no. I think Karavek's Spite is one of the cards that I have the most trouble spelling. Oh.
So he's going to prosperity, and he needs to hit either a Cadaverous Bloom or another prosperity and another Natural Balance.
Yeah, the chat was just mentioning that the deck thinning aspect of Natural Balance really does increase the density of the card draw spells that he plays later. That is a good point. That it does make the combo a lot more consistent if you're able to get 10 basic lands out of your deck.
For sure. So he can still hit Polluted Deltas and Cities of Brass, but basics-wise, he's pretty good.
All right, so at least, I mean, I guess I won't call it yet, but it appears that the Pros Bloom deck is able to do its thing at least once, so that's good. Good news for everyone. We can all enjoy this while it's happening. So we did see some people cheering for the Prosperity Bloom deck. Are there any Dothy aggro fans out there? Or anyone cheering? Or you could just be cheering for Gabe, I guess. Maybe you're cheering more for the player as compared to the deck. But
yeah,
maybe
in chat. What are you rooting for there?
All right, so did we see how big was this prosperity? It's hard to tell, I guess, with seeing how much I can't really read the dice.
Yeah, I didn't see what it was for or how much it was for. It looks like we got some love from Mono Black and for Gabe. Absolutely.
I bet the light total's wrong. So I believe at the time with when this deck was a thing that you could be at 0 life
Yes.
for
So
a
it didn't
phase?
matter until the phase ended. Yeah, so you could go down to 0 with Infernal Contract and then go back up after you drain him.
So that is something that is not an option for Shawn anymore, since we are playing with the modern rules.
Definitely makes the deck less good, but also makes a lot more sense. I just remember back in the day learning that rule and being like, that's weird. Really? You
Yeah,
can die but not lose?
yeah, it's one of those. It kind of feels like damage on the stack almost the same way. Like it's like
Yeah.
damage on the stack for your life total.
So the Fanatic can attack, deals damage, and then deals damage again?
Yeah.
What? What's funny is they enacted damage on the stack when they took away going to 0. So they got rid of one rule that didn't make any sense, but they when they implemented the stack, they obviously had the damage.
Okay, so Shawn was at 8, and now they have him at 6. Why is he?
He's Limb Duel's vaulting here.
Oh, okay, okay, that makes more sense.
Or he's got it. Well, I mean, I guess he has the mana to cast the leak, but if he casts the leak, it might stop him from going off. Also, the cards only go on the top of the library with Vault, right? So is he going to Infernal Contract here?
He could be playing like I don't know how much mana he has, but he could be playing like a little prosperity to get like a cadaverous bloom into play, and then have a big prosperity.
Sure, 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 sure. Eye Blossom, or I guess just Blossom says, I miss damage on the stack and mana burn. You know, mana burn is another thing that I understand why they got rid of it. It just makes a lot of sense. Like the last thing that people need is to like worry about that and damage from their own lands and et cetera, et cetera. But it definitely made the game more skillful, I would argue. Right. Having not being able to kind of just tap lands willy-nilly or those cards that make you tap your lands, things like that. It definitely introduced another level to the game to have mana burn, but I think we're all probably better off for it being gone. I don't know what your thoughts are, Mike.
Yeah, I'm pretty indifferent. I guess I know when they made the change, I thought I was like, no, you're getting rid of something I love, and I don't particularly miss it. But if they said today that we're bringing back mana burn, I'd be fine with that too. So
Yeah.
so we had some recent follows. Tutso Charlie, and then Andrew is online now. Thank you for being online now. Thank you for the follow.
Woo! Thank you. Mana burn makes Soul Ring a balanced card. Yeah, I don't know about that, but it definitely makes things more interesting, like Soul Ring or even Ancient Tomb, right? Maybe you have one colored source in an Ancient Tomb, but you need to cast a 2 casting cost thing. Now you're going to take, you're going to bolt yourself to play it. Basically, I mean, it definitely matters.
So with Shawn, kind of like I guess a few minutes ago, we definitely thought he just in control. He had everything he needed. Given that he's kind of paused and kind of had to think things through, is there a chance that he's passing the turn without killing Gabe?
I think if he does, he's in big trouble.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think he has any way to stop what's on the board, so I think he's just dead if that's the case. But
Yeah. And now he's within Karavek's spite range as well. So if he has to use his leak mana, and I assume he has one blue, that's the bigger die there. Maybe I'm wrong, but
well, he's got a
he needs.
Lotus Petal in play, so
Oh, okay, fair enough. Fair enough. JSS King says Eladamri's Vineyard was so good with mana burn. Yes, it was.
I do like that card.
It's a sweet card.
Yeah, I've thought about playing that one too. Is that one from Tempest, I believe?
It's either
Yep,
Tempest or
it's
Stronghold.
Tempest. I got it up now. All right.
What's the Cold Snap card, like Braid of Fire or whatever, where cumulative upkeep you add 1 red to your mana pool?
Yeah, yeah.
Uh, it's modern. Sorry, everyone, but technically Cold Snap's part of the Ice Age block, so we
Yeah.
can talk about it, even if it has the new frame.
Yeah. So that one, yeah, that one was like really interesting when it came out. You're like, oh, how can I take advantage of this without like killing myself? And now you're just kind of like, well, I'll just throw it in my deck, and maybe 10 turns later I might be able to use it.
I'll cast that Greater Gargadon. Just you wait. All right.
Damian Burzum, thank you for the follow.
All right, so you're right. We do see the prosperity here from Shawn. So he's going to try to get that top.
Yep. So it should be cards that he liked, given that he Limdol's vaulted. So is that a verb now?
He vaulted.
Oh, I was saying Limdol's vaulted.
Limdol's. Not to be confused with Limsdol Vault. Very boring vault. Not a lot goes on there. Not much to see.
Oh, I Blossom, the card you thinking about is Spectral Searchlight. That one, yeah, that was, I guess, is probably the reason I miss Manaborn the most. I did enjoy this one. Because you could fix your mana in a multicolor set, but then also later in the game, you found a lot of opportunities just to basically ping your opponent. Yeah, that one was really cool.
All right. So Shawn's still thinking. Still has cards.
All right,
All right. So find a guide. Ooh. Doesn't have access to blue mana right now. So right now, if Gabe has Spite, is where he wins.
Okay, yeah, but he also needs Dark Ritual too. So.
Yep, there was a prosperity. So there was a chance that maybe he had it. So if Gabe lets Bloom resolve, then I'm guessing he doesn't have it. He's picking up his cards. He's thinking.
Well, yeah, if there's ever an opportunity to cast Karavek Spite, it's right now.
Right now. It is right now. I mean, how can you not love this format? A format where Karavek Spite is played. So sweet.
Yes, Gabe has killed me with that card, so.
I've been killed by it as well.
So how many prosperities has he used?
2, 3?
Two.
Two?
I think it's 3, right? Because he had one in the opening hand, or did that one get discarded?
No, he never played it.
Okay, then maybe it's only been 2.
Oh my god, he had it. There's the ritual and the spite.
All right, yeah.
Oh wow. Yep.
Yeah, I think because Shawn had to use all the mana. Like if he had a little bit of mana available, then he might have been able to use the mana leak as a defensive measure. But
oh my god,
things got too tight, and looked like Shawn had his windows down just for one, or his shields down just for one moment, and Gabe took advantage.
Oh man, I'm gonna tell him to unmute. Every chat's just like, no, everybody's going nuts.
All right, let's jump over to our whereby screen so we could talk about that match.
The vault to stack so that I could draw Cadaverous Bloom and another prosperity. So prosperity for 2.
Yeah.
And then go off. But I had the drain life, so my plan there was going to be cast the Cadaverous Bloom and then either play Deed, maybe Deed, and blow up all your stuff, or
you have the mana for Deed.
Drain life, just gain a bunch of life and try to go next turn.
Oh, you mean you wouldn't have enough mana for the full drain life?
Can you guys hear us?
Is that what you mean?
I don't think they've unmuted us
yet. Can you
hear
me okay? Hello? Shawn?
Oh.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yeah.
I was saying you didn't have enough mana for the full drain life?
No, but I had enough to drain you for like 15 or something.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I drew it in the prosperity.
Yeah. That's the problem with prosperity.
Yeah.
All right, they want us to unmute.
Hey guys.
Hey there.
Hey.
You guys hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you. Okay. Can you hear me okay?
Yep. Yeah, we were listening to your conversation just at the end there, so yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we were
prosperity lets both people draw.
Yeah, we were talking about like when definitely things looked really good for Shawn when he cast a second natural balance, and then I looked at that one swamp that was on Gabe's side, and I said, well, there is the only thing that Gabe can do in the spot right here is he has the possibility of Dark Ritualing into Karavek Spite. And turns out there was a moment where Shawn didn't have any blue mana, and he had to use it all, and the perfect opportunity for the spite to come down.
Shawn was worried. Shawn, you said you were worried that you miscounted. I think honestly the only thing you misplayed was the not leak. You had the mono leak in hand, and so like not.
Yeah, I mean there was probably another line there where I could just cast Pernicious Deed and leave the mana leak up, or something, and then look to Pernicious Deed like next turn or something. But like I had another Natural Balance in hand, so I could have gotten some mana off of that maybe. But then that would have reset the Limdol's Vault that I had just cast. So like I definitely fucked up the end, like the closing that one out, which I'll just chalk up to inexperience playing this deck, because that was a win. That shouldn't have been a loss.
I said to Shawn before, I actually really want him to go off. I wanted to see it happen, but I
did too.
So did we.
Yeah.
Yeah. What was your sideboard, or are we? This is what I was. This was my in out.
Yeah, it looked like Gabe, you had a lot more cards to bring in, and cards that you didn't really want in the main to bring out. So it felt like things got better in the sideboard games a lot more significantly for you than Shawn didn't have as many options.
I mean, these are the auto 5 out. And then I was like, I'm just not. Drain Life is for a longer game. I'm not gonna have an opportunity. And then I didn't want to try to get greedy with mana with another 3 mana thing. So this was just a straight swap for 2 mana versus 3. Okay. I didn't think you don't have any graveyard shenanigans, right, Shawn?
No, nothing. No graveyard.
It was just 3 for 2.
Yeah, we overlooked the Dystopia, but yeah, that makes sense. And we saw the Naturalize in your hand, and we were like, why is that in there? We were confused, but it made sense.
What was the Naturalize for? Just the Bad Moon?
No, for Naturalize for Dystopia.
Yeah.
Oh, so I guessed right on the Cabal Therapy by picking it. Okay.
Yeah.
That's what I was worried. Yeah, I had it in my hand.
So I brought in 2 Innocent Bloods just for stopping early dudes. 3 Duresses to either take out stuff like Dystopia or Cabal Therapy. Deeds are great against everything, and the Naturalizes for Dystopia. I took out the Contracts because they kind of suck, although one of them would have been fantastic at the end there. But I didn't want to burn myself for a bunch of life. And then I took out 2 Spirit Guides to make some room. It's the narrowest of the acceleration. And then the Plagiarize, my incorrect thinking was that Plagiarize is great if they have instant speed interaction while you're comboing off. I was like, well, he doesn't really have anything, so I don't need Plagiarize. What's he going to draw?
Yeah.
So
I think it was cards 7 and 9 in the Prosperity, or maybe 6 and 8. It was towards the end of the Prosperity that I pulled the Drain Life and then the Spite. But yeah, Plagiarize I was thinking Plagiarize was pretty sweet tech on your part for when you're going off to like lock the other person out for sure.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But
yeah,
that was
tricky because you give them land with the Natural Balance, and then you give them cards with the Prosperity. So you have to have some ways of kind of knocking them.
Yeah.
Making that not matter so much. So
yeah. Well, it's funny because I realized once you did the second Natural Balance, I'm like, well, I already got 5 lands. This doesn't affect me at all. Like that's a complete one-sided like lockout. The second Natural Balance, I feel like, is the one that kills you, not the first.
Yeah, and that was also when I thought, maybe I took my eye off the ball a little bit there or something, but I thought that was it at that point because I was like, oh, I have a million mana. I'm going to Prosperity for a bunch. I already had the Drain Life in my hand. I just needed to find Cadaverous Bloom. And that was what I couldn't find was, however many cards, I drew over half the deck there. There's 4 Cadaverous Blooms in there. Yeah. And I didn't find one until I Limdol's vaulted one to the top, but that also... the other thing would have been if I had stopped Limdol's vaulting, because I found a Cadaverous Bloom on the second pile, and that I was at 7 there, but it was like Cadaverous Bloom and then like Lotus Petal and 2 lands, and I was like, well, it'd be nice to get another business spell mixed in there with the Cadaverous Bloom because I had just spent my Prosperity. And so I guess I had another Prosperity in hand, but it was probably just greedy to keep going after that because I went and 3 more piles. I figured that I'd seen there were maybe 20 cards left in the deck, and so I figured there was a good chance I could just go 1 or 2 more piles. But I had to go all the way down to 4 life to find the next one, which had a Prosperity also in the pile, which was nice, but probably superfluous and ultimately was a bad decision. So
I don't know what you could have done different. I guess. I mean, So at the beginning when you duressed and you took my Dark Ritual instead of the Cabal Therapy, that surprised me because I was expecting you to take the Cabal Therapy.
Yeah, I don't know if I don't know if that was right or not either. It felt a lot closer though, because all I want is time in the matchup.
Yeah,
I just want to make it take as long as possible for me to die. There's a lot of redundant cards in here, and like Limdol's Vault gives you a lot of ability to recover from a therapy in terms of finding your combo pieces. But yep.
What did you guys think, Mike Flint, about that? The taking the Dark Rit versus the Cabal Therapy.
I like taking the Dark Ritual. I think slowing down the clock, I think, is what I would have done.
Sure, makes sense. Yeah, I can see that. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say I like that play as well. I mean, I think because you can you can Cabal Therapy and you may miss, right? And you're not gonna have pressure as quickly, so it just lengthens the clock.
And I that's a good point, because I didn't have the squandered resources in hand, which I think is the natural thing to Cabal Therapy in the dark.
That's what I named, right?
And that's what you named, which I think is correct. But I knew I didn't have one, so I figured that the first shot would miss.
Yeah.
So
it was deciding between squander resources and Bloom, but Bloom I figured is later 5 mana. Let me take the one that gets you to Bloom. And I wasn't worried about. And then what did I do the second time around? Drain life, right? Because I'm like, okay, let me take him off of his.
In my hand?
Yeah, when I caballed the second time.
Oh yeah, to take the drain life.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, drain life is also time, right? Like there are certainly lines where you just, because this deck I think is a little different because you don't have the diet end of phase from the original days, and so sometimes you just cast drain life for like 6 or whatever, in order to not have worries about your life total. Sure. Which would have been great in the end there.
So that's actually something I think I personally really like about your build is because the original one only had 1 drain life, but you don't have to, like in theory, you don't have to win and combo all at once. You can drain life me for
and there was
12 or whatever, and then keep going. Then you get to more Infernal Contracts and and
that's there was also that like moment in the original like Pro Tour Paris '97 when Mike Long had he had removed Elven Cache from his deck, and he had the 1 drain life, and he got like coercioned, I think, by Mark Justice, and he triple deked him into taking something else. Like I forget what he took, but he didn't take the drain life, and if he had just taken the drain life, it was game over.
Well, from his perspective, or from Mark Justice's perspective, it doesn't really do that much, because if you get the combo off, you have the Elven Cache and you can get it back. But Mike made sure to let him know. He said after the game, he said, if you would have taken this, I just would have been dead. And he's like, you're lying. And then I think he flashed his sideboard and shows him the Elven Cache. So Mike,
we actually have someone in chat right now saying, you forgot to start comboing and ask, do you need me to go through the motions?
Yes. Yeah.
Well, so it's funny.
Gabe was like, I think you've got me here, and I was like, yeah, but people want to see this thing combo off. Let's just do it. Let's go through it and show everyone. And then I fucked it up.
Yeah.
No, but you were doing. I teased him, guys, because he was doing the Mike Long finger thing. How Mike Long would do the finger counting.
That's funny.
And you started doing it, and I was like laughing about that. I'm like, this is how Mark Justice felt.
We also joked, Shawn, that you should get the ability when you play this deck that you can just put a card in your lap when you want to.
Yeah,
it's a helpful addition.
Yes.
Special power.
Yes.
Yeah.
One thing I need to check on the replay is I forgot if I played a land or not on the turn I went off there, because I drew squandered resources, and then I don't remember if I played a land or not. But that would have affected the calculations at the end there.
Would it have made a difference?
I think what it would have done is I would have prosperity for 2. I think it probably still would have ended the same way. But that was at least going to be enough that, aside from Karavik Spike killing me, I would have been able to finish comboing off that turn.
You would have finished that turn.
I could have played the Cadaverous Bloom with 1 blue up, and then had a bunch of cards in my hand with the Bloom to be able to prosperity for another 8 cards or something. But yeah.
Cool.
Well, if nothing else, I hope people take away that Karvik Spite is an underplayed card.
Well, thanks for the games, guys. It was awesome to watch.
Thank you, Shawn.
I think
Shawn, I
we'll
look forward to you going off next week.
Yeah.
yes, I think we'll bid you adieu.
Sounds good.
And we'll get set up for the next players, guys.
Cool.
All right.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you, guys.
Later. Congrats, Gabe. Good job.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye.
Gabe.
Okay, so we have our next match between Aaron Dix and Bryan Manolakos. So we are going to take a quick break and get them set up. We're hoping that it'll just be about 5 minutes. So I'm going to run a few things as we get them set up, so you guys can sit tight, chat amongst you guys. I might be able to chime in on some of the chatting, but we'll just get things set up so we can start the next match. So we will be right back. So don't go anywhere. There's our second match of the night will be starting soon. Hey everybody, and welcome back. We are starting our second match of the Premodern Showdown Series 2. So you can see that we have Aaron Dix playing against Bryan Manolakos. And so the decks available to Aaron normally are a Jund Fires Rock, a Forbidian list, and then a counter Bant Slivers. And then Bryan has brought Mind Slicer, the Birds, and Solfatara Springs.
Not the birds.
Yeah, and so Aaron looked at Bryan's 3 lists, and he said no to Mind Slicer. He does not want to play against that deck. And Bryan decided to axe the Bant counter Slivers. So between the 2 decks, Aaron has chosen to play the Jund Fire Rock. Jund Rock Fires. I'm going to mess up saying that. But and then Bryan has opted for the Solfatara Springs deck. So, so we have a exciting thing. I guess either way, what Bryan was going to pick was going to be pretty exciting. If it's either the Birds or Solfatara Springs, I definitely was going to get excited. Not that there's anything not exciting about Mind Slicer, but the other 2 I feel like are above and beyond. So let's take a quick look at these lists so we can get an idea of what these decks are doing. All right, so we have the Jund Rock Fires from Aaron. Do you want to talk about this deck, Flint?
Yeah, and this was for those of you who listened to the All Things Considered podcast episode that Mike were on recently. Mano was actually, I don't want to say complaining, but giving us a hard time at least for allowing this list because it's pretty close to Rock, right? And Rock is a tier 1 deck in Premodern, but what Aaron has decided to do is make it a Jund deck. And so he's added in some red cards. You know, he's got his lightning bolts in there. He's got his, is it Thunderscape Familiar? Which reduces the costs of black and green spells.
Yep.
And then he's got your, it's kind of your standard package. He's got Shivan Worm, right?
Yes.
And Fires of Yevamaya, which, Fires was a big deck back in the day. And a lot of people who come into Premodern, they want to build a Fires deck, but we haven't really seen one have a lot of success in the format. So this might be the perfect platform to try it out.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Yeah, I'm pretty much kind of reiterating what you're saying, but yeah, a lot of people have tried like the Fires list in Premodern and just the straight red green list and haven't been very satisfied with it. So it'll be interesting to see if the combination with the Black Disruption gives it a little bit more interaction with like mostly the combo decks, maybe the control decks too, that it gives you a little bit of time to come online and get the Fires and the rest of the stuff going. So it'll be interesting to see this combination.
And can I just add, he's playing Flame Tongue Kavu,
yes,
which is another blast from the past that, it's kind of cool to see in a deck.
It's one of those cards that's like, I look at it and I'm just surprised that it's just not played that much or not good enough maybe. Like it just seems like such a powerful, great card. And I mean, it's still good almost in today's standards. Like I think it would be playable in standard if it were printed today. And like, yeah, it's surprising we don't see more FTKs. All right. So for Bryan, we have the Solfatara Springs. So there's a lot of going on with this deck. And basically what it's trying to do, it's a land denial or destruction deck. There are the elements of Partick Miner, Solfatara, and Turf Wound, and they all have the clause of the target player can't play lands this turn. So while it doesn't destroy land, which most of the LD decks that we've seen in the past have, this just prevents your opponent from playing a land. The advantage with Solfatara and Turf Wound is that it also draws a card. You get to draw a card when you play it. So while you're not destroying the land, you're just preventing it, but you get to replace that card right away. I guess Solfatara you have to wait a turn. But so with that Mana Denial, you're slowing down your opponent. There's other things to bounce stuff with Hoodwink. There's Aven Fogbringer, I believe the name of the card is, and then Words of Wind. So those are ways to make your opponent pick up more lands. So if they get off to a slow start or you slowed them down, you might be able to bounce those other lands. And then there's also the elements of Anvil of Bogarden and Hauling Mine, which are drawing extra cards. And then ultimately, the idea is they're going to have too many cards in their hand, and they're going to take damage from Black Vice. That's the idea of this deck. All right, so do you want to summarize anything else, Flint, with this deck?
No, I don't think so. I just want to see it in action. So I'll let the players know that they can go ahead and get started. I believe Mano is on the play. We'll see if they needed mulligan at all, but I'll give them the go-ahead here.
Okay. Let me flip around the screen for Aaron. And there we go. All right, so we see a turn 1 Ancient Tomb, and that allows him to play the turn 1 Howling Mine.
What is that? Is that beta? Is that?
I mean, it could be Collector's Edition. I'm going to assume it's beta, but I don't know. It's hard for me to tell the difference between those. I'm not as keen eye as a lot of other people probably in chat could tell me. But
and we see a turn 1 bird from Aaron. So pretty strong plays from both players. What did Bryan play? He played a Shivan Reef, but he's got it tapped. Oh, he killed the bird.
Okay.
His graveyard's off screen. Bolt. All right. Thanks, Jeff.
That makes sense. As I say, I think the only other 1-drops he has is like Black Vice, but that would stay in play.
Yep. So there's the duress. What do we see here, Mike?
All right, we have City of Brass, a Lightning Bolt, which is taken, and then our Reflecting Pool, and the last card is the Aven Fogbringer. Okay.
Bring in the fog. And the Fogbringer hits play.
So while this card is not on rate very, very efficient, the interaction it has is with the Words of Wind, that it is a very strong combination. While your opponent's picking up most likely a land, and then you pick up the Aven Fogbringer, and then you play it, and then you're bouncing 2 lands every time. So definitely, if things are going well for the Solfatara Springs deck, that combination could come into play.
Absolutely. And it looks like Mana's down to 15, taking damage from the
Ancient Tomb. Yep.
Fogbringer.
And yeah, the other thing about like the Ancient Tomb is really important in this deck, because the difference between like the 1 turn difference with a lot of the cards that Bryan has are really big. So having that fast mana is really important. So here we see the Thunderscape Apprentice. So the cards that Aaron has played are mana cards, which is the things that Bryan wants to get off the table. So
I mean, it's a nice play from Aaron in terms of reducing costs. So it's kind of like a free land that can't be bounced in a way.
oh, I got the wrong one up. Thunder. Is it Thunderscape?
Familiar?
All right.
Thunder.
Yeah. So this reduces the black and green spells.
There it is. Sweet Kavu. All right, so Ancient Tomb for another Howling Mine. All right.
So that's going to keep Bryan's hand stocked. Okay, and then here we have the namesake card.
Solfatara.
I almost typed in Solfatara Springs. And yep, and the Thunderscape just is getting in there for 1.
So is Bryan going to draw 4 cards on his turn?
He's going to draw... Oh, yes. Well, no... Yes, because it was Solfatara. Yes, it's going to be 4.
Yeah, so he's going to draw 1 from the Solfatara, 1 from each mine, and 1 for turn.
So he's definitely got a lot of action going on. All right, so we do see a Fires of Yavimaya.
Yep.
Trying to keep up with all the life total changes.
Yeah, 12-15, right? Yeah, you got it.
Yeah, thankfully Aaron's got it on the phone. Otherwise, I think I would be lost.
So it sounds like maybe Aaron's thinking it before he passes the turn.
He's got a discard, so yeah, he's got to figure out what cards he does not want to play. He just carried 3 cards. 4. Wait. Oh no, these are the ones he's keeping. All right, I was gonna say, I'm like, he didn't draw that many cards.
How many cards did he draw?
All right, that makes a little more sense.
All right, so he discards Carplucent Forest, Spirit Monger, and a Blastoderm. It looks like. Yep.
I guess he's just anticipating that there are going to be more bounce effects, or that he's not playing another land next turn. Because otherwise, you think if you have a land drop and you're able to play a hasty Blastoderm, that's pretty appealing. He might just have another one, so it might be redundant. But I have to imagine that Bryan has some form of disruption in his hand. It could, I mean, Bolt, Solvatara, or Turf Wound.
We've seen 2 bolts already, right?
Sure.
So lower probability there, but still. He just drew 4 cards. I don't know if he drew for Sulf. It was pretty quick.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I wasn't watching. I guess that's the downside to Solfatara as compared to Turf Wound, is it's harder to remember the card draw right away. So he's contemplating this Aven Fogbringer on defense. Oh, now are they drawing? It looked like he...
Yeah,
okay.
he drew now.
All right.
Gabe in chat here. They're talking about how to pronounce Solfatara, and they're talking about someone mispronouncing it. Gabe chimes in. I knew a guy that called it install energy instead of instill energy for 10 years. It makes sense, right? You know, you're kind of installing energy in a way. Instill is better, but yeah, I like that.
Yeah, I mean, when there's logic behind it, I guess you could at least be more forgiving.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of when people consistently mispronounce something like that.
It's also, like I was gonna say, like it's hard to. I mean, my image is pretty small, but it's hard to read the text on that card. So that makes it.
Feature both during your untap phase and 1 additional time during your turn.
I'm just the card title, like if you're looking whether it says install or instill.
Oh yeah,
all right.
Yeah, it's that.
That looked like a Turf Wound. So I think we need a Black Vice soon.
Yeah, definitely.
But I mean, I guess if when I say soon, I mean, but if you're able to play like a Solvatara or a Turf Wound or a Partick Miner every turn, then maybe it's not so bad. I mean, because the board state's pretty good for Bryan. Like he's able to play lands and Aaron isn't. So
Aaron takes point, goes to 12 to bolt.
The Aven Fogbringer. I bet that's something that has not happened very often. That Aven Fogbringer has been bolted. All right, the Thunderscape Familiar. I want to call it an apprentice. Thunderscape Familiar is getting in for 1. Yes, Black Vice is the main way that Bryan will win games.
I think he's really hoping to bounce another land here too. You know, Jeff White chimes in here in chat and says, you know, a Blastoderm would be brutal, and he's right, because if you play the land and drops a Blastoderm with haste, I mean, that's a pretty quick clock, and I'm not sure there's much that Bryan can do about it.
Yeah, and there is the second ability on Fires of Yavimaya that can sacrifice itself for +2/+2. So that is something that Bryan needs to keep in mind, that because he does it while Blastoderm has Shroud, the Thunderscape Apprentice. Not Apprentice, Familiar, sorry, could be targeted to get a little boost. That might be enough to kill Bryan. But yeah, things are looking pretty good for the Solfatara Springs. All right, so Ancient Tomb's getting tapped.
Yep. Gonna knock him down.
I guess the other way that Bryan could win is if you just have like a Words of Wind and you're just never able to get under it, and then an Avid Fogbringer could go the distance, or Partick Miner, I guess. Like, it doesn't really matter what it is. Some little creatures could deal some damage. Right.
bolt.
That looked like a fancy lightning bolt.
Yeah, that looked pretty cool. Altered and then written on as well.
I'm guessing that it has to do with a prize card for old school tournament. So there we see the Particle Miner. Yep.
Now Aaron's in trouble.
Well, no, it has sacrifices, so it's not like it's a loop with Words of Wind, but
yeah, but Brian's gonna skip 2 of his draws this next turn.
Sure.
And everyone's counts 2 permanent. Right.
So it's more of the Words of Wind that you're looking at as compared to the Particle Miner.
Yeah, because he doesn't have the familiar out anymore, right? Can't play any lands this turn. And he's definitely losing at least 1 land, depending on what's in Mana's hand.
Yeah.
Yeah, Robin, I think you're right. Aaron needs 3 red lands and 3 bolts at this point.
I mean, that is a danger. I mean, a Howling Mine does give your opponent a bunch of cards, so that is a situation that, like, if Brian, like, I'm going to assume that Aaron has no permanents in play because of Words of Wind, but he's still able, if he is able to play a land, which is not a guarantee given Brian's deck, you might be able to go Bolt and then over 3 turns do that. So I want to see Avon Fogbringer now. I want to see the loop. I thought this was just a pipe dream to have Avon Fogbringer in Words of Wind, but here we are. We see the first time that this card's on camera. It seems like all systems are go, and this deck is humming like a well-oiled machine. So this is pretty exciting, if you ask me.
Yeah, I think he needs to bounce at least 1 of Aaron's lands here. He may not do both right now. He doesn't necessarily have to, but oh no, he's just going to bounce 1 permanent. Okay. Interesting. All right, there's the Vice.
And Brian's at 9, right? He's not at 6. I don't know.
He's at 9.
Okay, I didn't know if I was reading that upside down.
Yeah.
All right, and the Black Vice. So I'm trying to think with the order of these draws.
So
Black Vice is upkeep and Howling Mine is draw step. So the Black Vice will not see the extra cards from Howling Mine yet. Right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it looks like Aaron's scooping them up.
All right, he's had enough. Magic's not any fun when you don't get to play your lands, apparently.
Yeah, when you don't get to play at all.
I don't know. Fun. For all the suffering that Aaron had to do, I think that we all got to get a lot of enjoyment. So Aaron's loss is our gain. I think that's the moral of the story. All right, let's jump over to our decks, and we'll see if sideboarding changes this matchup. Okay, the Jun Rockfire's sideboard. I see 3 naturalizes. That seems like a card that could definitely come into play. Howling Mines, Words of Wind. Those are the Anvil of Bogarden. Those are cards that are all juicy targets for the naturalize.
Yeah.
Beyond that,
what are the red cards? I can't read it in the
Earthquake are the 2 at the top, and then the Flame Tongue Kavu at the bottom, and Terminate, the 3 terminates at the bottom.
So it's definitely naturalized. Now let's not mess this up. Is there anything else that he plays? Is there a world where he brings in negators instead of Spirit Mongers or something?
I don't think so. They're like, man,
just feels so bad.
Getting your negator lightning bolted in this type of deck, it's almost like plays into Mano's plan. So
much, yeah.
Yeah. So
Recurring Nightmare.
Yeah, Recurring Nightmare is kind of slow. Though I wonder if there's ever like a world where if Aaron's thinking that he might have to discard hand size, and then he might have 3 mana and a creature where he's able to really trade in like a birds or something for a big creature. I guess you might have to have haste for that to be like really beneficial, but it's a situation that might come up. But yeah, in general, I don't know, Recurring Nightmares does seem like the slowest card.
He really get a D on the board too, right?
Spirit Monger is pretty clunky too.
Okay.
All right, so let's look at Solfatar Springs. Okay, we have Chain of Vapor, Arcane Laboratory, Pyroblast, another Words of Wind, Custody Battle. Do you know what that one is?
It's one of those weird pick a number or whatever cards or
So custody battle is a two mana enchant creature, and enchanted creature has at the beginning of your upkeep, it switches control, I think, unless it has to be sacrifice a land. I was gonna say discard a card, but I think it has to be sacrifice a land. Couple extra hoodwinks, and then propaganda. Propaganda actually could be a card that we see, though. I guess if I don't know, this is tricky. I'm not sure exactly how you want to. I've never played with or against Solfatara Springs. I'm guessing that's probably what 99% of us can say, and so I'm not exactly sure how Bryan should be sideboarding.
Yeah, it's a good call. Like, do the hoodwinks come in?
Well, he's got a couple of them in already.
Yeah.
I don't know what cards are.
Does he need bad cards in his list against Aaron, right?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm just gonna say anything could happen, and I'm ready to just jump over the match. I think that's my take. I'm just
feel free to chime in chat in terms of what Mano's sideboarding strategy should be. Yeah. I'm gonna tell them that they can go ahead and get started.
Yeah, so that was pretty sweet. It's always cool. Like you look at some of these lists and you just say like, yeah, this deck is awesome, but how often or how consistent can it do the cool thing that it's trying to do? And I would say that sequence of turns that Bryan had could go toe to toe with a lot, if not all, of the top decks in Premodern. That was
good.
Yeah, that was
really good.
Yeah.
So James Smith says propaganda feels strong. Vandrick probably played about 80 games with Solfatara Springs. I love that. What else? Nothing for Mano to take out. Pretty tight brew. Okay.
We'll see. I gotta calm my Nightbot down. Yeah, sorry. He gets very particular, I guess, about caps locks. So I don't know. I don't know what your message was, but
but is it better than Spite? It's Gabe Farkas trying to remind us all that he Carvex spited Shawn earlier. So we see the city and the duress from Aaron here.
Okay.
And I missed what he took.
I didn't see it either.
Chat, what did Aaron take?
All right, so there are other cards. It looks like is that a boomerang? That card on the end? Yeah, boomerang, hoodwink. I think a turf wound, and I'm guessing a Solfatara and a City Brass.
I think that's right.
I can see out of like that hand if you're taking something like a Howling Mine or a Anvil. It's probably the cards I think.
Looks like it was a Vice.
Okay. All right, so here we have a Wooded Foothills. That'll get a forest, and now we have the Birds of Paradise.
Nice altar there. No, Mike, you got to put the altered version up.
Yeah, I'll try. Maybe next week, or maybe I need some crowdfunding in order to be able to have that feature. So, all right. So, casting a boomerang here on a land. Wait.
Looks like bird actually.
That doesn't make sense, right?
I thought he was going to go for a land as well. What do folks think? Why boomerang the bird there? You just trying to...
That doesn't make sense because you're able to deploy a land and a bird the next turn. I think that was a mistake, but all right, we'll move on. So bird gets redeployed.
And so 18 all, and then we see the Mike Hoyp apprentice.
Yes.
Also known as the Thunderscape Familiar.
Now he should be at 17. Because he cityed twice and he fetched once. But I don't know if you want to message them and just let them know. Don't know if life totals will come into play at the end. All right, so here we have a lightning bolt. Yes, that is a Kavu, the Thunderscape familiar.
Did he city twice?
Yeah, he played the birds twice. He did, or duressed. He duressed and birds.
Ah, yeah.
Or he duressed, he fetched, and then it was tapped last turn. So, all right. So the Blastoderm has Shroud, so that one's a little harder for Bryan to do anything about. So this one could be a little problematic.
So what Cabo is that? There it is. Thanks, Mike.
Yep. He gets his time in the spotlight as compared to Flametone Cabo, usually stealing his limelight. All right.
He made it up to the big show.
All right, let me catch up with life totals.
14, 16.
All right, and now a Howling Mine has been added. And then it looked like, I don't know if it was Solfatar or Turf One, but one of the two.
Yeah, but there's a Blastoderm on the table.
Yeah, so this is a lot different than the last game. Well, Bryan is stalling in terms of preventing more lands. It's a lot different when there's a Blastoderm with 4 fading counters. Did it go up? Did he? He took
Isn't this supposed to be 3?
It starts at 3, so did he tick it up? Tick it up instead of tick it down?
Wait a minute.
I would say the
Aaron Dick's errata.
It
says 4.
Well, what can I think of the name of it? The Planar Chaos one, the 2/8 one, has Vanishing, and that one has 4, because the rules are slightly different.
Yep.
Dumontiero 88, thank you for the follow.
Thank you.
That it has to be a 2, right? It starts at 3, so
it has to be a 2, yeah.
Yeah. Calciderm, yes, thank you. That was bothering me. Usually I'm pretty good with card names. I could not remember the Calciderm. All right, the Blastoderm didn't die. He finished off his opponent. So okay, let's quick jump back over the decks. I don't know. I mean, I don't think anything changes in terms of your priorities, given that you're on the play or the draw, that you'd really change anything. And we didn't really see any sideboard cards, right?
No, I don't think we saw any from Bryan. Did we see any from Aaron?
No, I don't think so. So I don't know. Given the way that game played out, like Propaganda wouldn't have done that much, because like the issue that Mana would have is preventing them from getting a threat in play. Because once they have a threat in play, then they usually have probably 2 mana to, I'll say, upkeep or to allow it to attack. But
right.
Yes, the Devourer deck does have a similar mana base to the Solfatara Springs. A red-blue deck with a bunch of soul lands.
Maybe we messed up and Mana's deck isn't far enough away from Devourer. Maybe it's
Sure.
It's just slightly changed Devourer, everybody.
Yeah, but I feel like being on the play for Bryan is huge. Any of the games where he's the two things, being on the play and then having an Ancient Tube is gonna make a world of difference.
Yeah, for chat, when we were getting set up for this match, Bryan won the die roll, and he was just like, "Yes, that increases my chances by about 10%." He's pretty happy to be on the play in game 1.
So custody battle for the small creatures is an idea. I can see that being reasonable, because I guess like either way, you're getting rid of a mana.
Gracefully Balding, never thought I would see Turf Wound being played in a constructed event or anything. I agree, and here we are, and it's glorious. Oh, it looks like Mike Arnold played against someone who was running it in one of the monthlies. It's around.
Playing against Turfwound?
Turfwound, yes.
Okay.
That's Turfwound.
All right, chat. So we've seen both these decks win in kind of a convincing fashion both times. So who do we think is going to win this third game to take the match? Who's going to win? That's question one. And then who are you cheering for? And so those might be the same, I guess, but I have a feeling I know who people are cheering for. It's hard not to root for one of these decks, I feel like.
Type name of the player that you're rooting for, but name of the deck you want to win. Looks like Brian's taking a mulligan here.
Okay. We'll jump over. I don't really have anything much to add about the deck, so we'll go over here.
Love for Partick Minor in chat.
I used to play Partick Minor. I had one copy of it, and I would play it. And it wasn't even like a dedicated LD deck. It was just in my red deck.
Love it. Are we at the point where we can do polls yet, Mike, in Twitch?
No.
I know that's a thing.
I have not figured it out. I haven't looked into it, but maybe it's something to do.
We'll put it in our coming soon feature.
You're a moderator on the Twitch stream because that's usually done through Twitch, so maybe you'll be in charge of that in the future.
Yeah, I can look into it.
Can we gauge our results for what people are cheering for? Or what they're saying? Cheering for Partick Minor? Someone has to. I think a lot of people are cheering for Partick Minor. Mano all the way, okay. Gotta love an underdog. If you're not cheering for Brian, then what is this all for? Yep, so looks like our hearts have been won by the Solvatara Springs deck. Alright, Shivan Reef is the play. So we don't see a turn 1 Hauling Mine or Anvil, but we'll see. Oh, that was just nearly as quickly the bird came down. The bolt was summoned to take it out. Bolt the bird.
Yeah, just automatic knee jerk. See ya, bye.
Well, it's interesting. So given that he has Ancient Tomb right now, it's possible that he did not play the Ancient Tomb on turn 1, and held up the red for the bolting the bird. So I'm guessing that's what the sequence had.
Yeah. All right, so what are we going to see here?
Jared says, "Oh, white border bolts. Never mind. I want him to lose." All right, we got 3 damage. She's 3 damage. Cast a. Was it a turf wound or a Solfatara? I didn't see. I think it was a turf wound. I'll call it a turf wound. All right, so the one of the things that we didn't talk about the Solfatara Springs deck is the dynamic. Ooh, that is an island and a half, or maybe it's just a half an island. But that looks pretty sweet. I'm assuming that's an island. I don't know whether it was
1996 Arena Island.
Okay, that's pretty cool. Is the Solfatara Springs deck, you typically don't want to be playing against aggro, I think, most of the time. If your opponent's drops are real low, they can get under your turf wounds and Solfataras. But the nature of this is you have a lot of control of what you play, some control of what you play against. And if your opponent has an aggro deck, you're able to ban it. And I think that is probably part of the reason why the Bant counter slivers were deployed or were banned by Brian, is gives him the option to play this deck. All right, Brian's been redeemed in Jared's eyes, so that's good.
Yeah, I know Jeff White is in chat as well. He's got a bunch of those miscut lands. They're pretty sweet.
Okay, so it looks like 2 more damage. Ancient Tomb is working on, and that was another turf wound effect. All right, so Aaron's able to deploy a Thunderscape Apprentice, or not Apprentice, Familiar. Man, that the more this deck gets played, I really got to get that down.
By the end of the series, you'll have it.
Yes.
Don't worry.
But it's kind of like playing a land. It's a little bit harder work, but
yeah, we're just working out the kinks. We got to make sure that Bryan remembers to draw his card here.
Okay.
End of turn, Hoodwink on the Forest.
Okay, so
Like he remembers to draw his card, so we're good.
little Hoodwink action. Probably is bouncing lands most of the times, but I can see situations where you're using the other choices.
We're gonna see a mine here.
A boomer. Oh, I saw a boomerang.
And Mano is he was at 13, and now he's going to go down again to 11.
Okay.
Is that right?
Yeah, he took 1 from the Shivern Reef. Yes, the boomerang, and then he took 2. Right, he was at 14, right? Did I have it wrong? He wouldn't draw on his opponent's turn because he's casting it during the upkeep of his opponent if it's a Solfatara. Because a Solfatara is a delayed cantrip, a slow trip. But if you are casting Turf Wound, then you would draw right away. Wrong boomerang art? Yeah, I can't bring up the Legends one with my card fetcher. So I have limitations.
In Ferguson, it's never the wrong art.
Yeah, I do enjoy this one. Robin's saying the Legend one's the wrong one.
Robin's got my back.
All right, I've been
for different reasons though.
All right. I've been following chat and I haven't been paying attention to the game. So all right, I'll put them back up to 12. I guess they have them at 12.
Okay. So there's definitely some land denial shenanigans going on, but you know, Aaron still has ways to cast the spells. He's got a clock on the board.
So the one thing that is not present in Brian's deck is a card like either Pyroclasm or maybe like Fire Ice, where you could get rid of these like mana dorks, or alternatively, it might just tapping a land might be kind of like slowing them down that they're not able to develop onto the board. But that's something that's not available to Mano. So we'll see if. But right now, I mean, there aren't any lands in Aaron under Aaron's control. There's just the these two. So
yeah, I was surprised that we didn't see any earthquakes or pyroclasms in the list.
But then also, I mean, I think the probably part of the reason is if you're bringing a deck like this, your idea is you're banning the aggro deck, or you're never going to be bringing this deck when you can play against an aggro deck.
Yeah.
So I can see it reminds me of when in standard there was the Owling Mine deck, which is kind of similar to what this deck is doing. And some people would put like 13 cards in the sideboard that were just dedicated to an aggro matchup, when some others just said, this matchup you just don't win. I'm just gonna not put my sideboard cards in against the aggro deck because I'm gonna lose to it anyways. So that could be a thought process.
Okay, so we did see the duress. There was a boomerang in response. Duress resolves, takes a Mox Diamond, and Bryan is hellbent. So, oh, what a top deck!
All right, well, that's a good way to get out of being hellbent, but
he is at 10 life,
and he's giving Aaron a chance to play lands. What there was? Okay, I was to say, did I miss something? That's interesting. That like, what is in Aaron's hand that he's because he would be able to drop a 4-drop at that spot because of the Thunderscape. Oh no, no, it's just a 3-drop. Okay, never mind. I was thinking that it tapped for mana as well. All right, never mind.
Just kidding, everybody.
Yep. All right, we got a Partick Miner joining the party.
Should City be in the yard is what Ryan Krasinski's pointing out. It was boomeranged, right?
Yeah, there wasn't land. There's not land destruction. It's either going back to his hand. So. But yeah, the Fires of Yavimaya is definitely a very scary card for Brian to face off because it just any of the creatures that come down from this point are pretty scary.
The other thing here too, he may have discarded the City of Brass to hand size. No.
Oh, he just picked
okay.
It. Okay.
He's got it back. We're good. All right. Yeah, with Mano at 8, I don't know. Aaron may have this one.
I mean, I could see a possibility that Mano comes back because the Howling Mine can do a lot of work, but there's only so many. He's played a number of Turf Wounds and whatnot. He really needs a
Words of Wind.
Yeah, but the first one is probably just maybe it wouldn't pick up Fires. I don't know. Yeah, he needs a card like that really quick. Black Vice. Okay.
It's not going to do it. I mean, if that had been a Words of Wind, he could bounce 2 of Aaron's permanents next turn.
Yeah, but the next turn is a pretty big clause from the spot with if you're giving Aaron a land drop and there's a Fires in play.
The shenanigans may have come to an end, folks.
Well, that was an attack, right? So that's, I guess, good news for Mano, right? If you just attack for 1, that means you're not playing a big baddie that's coming in.
Mm-hmm.
There's no Baloth or Blastoderm. Ooh, this Birds can tap for mana, though. Got haste.
Crane Nightmare? Oh, no. The big bad Derm. Why did you do that post combat?
I don't know. I guess he forgot about Fires.
Maybe he's being nice.
Yeah. But I mean, I don't know what Brian does against Blastoderm. I don't think there's a. Nope. I mean, that's probably actually the best thing because that just blocks.
Yep.
Because I don't think there's much you can do against a Blastoderm once it's in play, other than like Words of Wind. But I think you're already winning at that point. All right, so he only took 2 damage from the Black Vice.
Yeah.
So he's starting to get under that as well.
I mean, Aaron can play a Shivan Worm. He can play a Spirit Monger. He could play a Tusker. How much? What's Tusker CMC?
7.
I guess it doesn't.
The Park Miner will get in the way. So these birds were attacking.
Yeah.
Why do you need to attack with both birds? Why do you need to attack with any of them? I'm confused. Okay, anyways. So 1 damage. Oh, he sacked it, so 2 additional damage.
So 2, 3?
Yep,
3 damage?
I put him down 3. Maybe there's some bolts or something coming this way. There's no more red mana. Alright, so mana's at 4. Another Fires. Yep. Okay. Okay. I mean, I'm hard pressed to figure out.
Yeah.
Is there any way to bounce multiple spells? I don't think. Okay, so there's a hoodwink. Oh, I was gonna say, Aaron might have wanted to sack that. It's like one of the ways he loses, like if he had like boomerang and another black vice, and there's just like, maybe not. There's no way you're taking that much damage. You need a few more black vices.
Another Ancient Tomb for Mano. Not a card he wants. Upheaval. Yeah, Upheaval would be nice if it were a card in the deck.
Yeah, people would be pretty sweet. Though I think it would just kill him by casting it. We got the Aven Fogbringer. He's back.
Bounce that Land War Wastes. Make him pay.
Well, it blocks too. That's another thing. Zach of all trades, thanks for the follow. All right, so that was 3 damage from a black vice. So I mean, okay, so he's at 2 though, and there's a fire, so he can't block both of them. So there needs to be a bolt from Mano, I believe. Thanks, Bob, for the subscription. Badlin Bob, thanks for the support. Bob is the commentator that does some of the recorded matches I do. So
hey, Bob.
If you enjoy his commentary, you can give him a shout out in the chat. And meanwhile, that was enough to dispatch the Solfatara Springs deck. I mean, that game was close. I mean, Aaron finished at 9, and if a Carter was a little bit different, Mano, if he would have got like a Words of Wind a little quicker, I think that game would have been a lot different. So I'm going to quick jump over to their screen, and maybe we can hear on what they're talking about, and then we'll do a little bit of post-game discussion.
Misplayed.
Yeah, it just like I mean, it was fairly clear after I stopped. Like there was a few, like the first 4 or 5 turns, you weren't doing anything, and I was doing my thing. Actually, let's see, what are they saying?
Oh yeah, they're saying unmute.
We're just listening to you guys. Keep going.
Gotta go over here a second.
Let's see.
Alrighty, I can hear you guys again.
All right, we have you unmuted, so just continue talking. Keep doing your discussion.
Yeah. So, just these super. I have not played Fires in about like well over a decade.
Sure.
So, like trying to remember the lines of play in this, because we couldn't goldfish at all, or we could goldfish, but we couldn't actually play test these.
Mm-hmm.
So trying to remember how these decks played after all these years, I could have taken advantage of a lot of the haste stuff that I absolutely didn't do. There were very clear misplays that if I had practiced this, but not being able to practice without, showing everybody what we were doing.
Sure.
Yeah.
It was weird.
I think so. I kept what I thought was a very good draw. I kept like a couple of lands, a bolt, a turf wound, and maybe like 2 turf wounds. So I was able to, when you played Wooded Foothills and sacked it, I knew you were going to play bird, and I was like, well, I have a shot here, because if you duressed me, it would have been way worse than birding me. But you bird me, I bolt your bird, I can turf wound you on turn 2, but you had the second bird, and it was just so brutal. It basically shut me off there. I kind of held it together for a little while, but I can't do it without drawing a Howling Mine. And it's funny, the turn that I fully went hellbent, I played my last card, or you duressed me, or whatever it was, I literally ripped Howling Mine off the top that turn.
Oh,
my only chance. It was the only possible card to keep me alive and keep me maybe running, but I had to draw the perfects from there. I had to draw like Howling Mine into Howling Mine, Fogbringer into like Boomerang, Words of Wind. It had to be like the perfects from there.
I know.
So it was really just all down to that second bird. I think if you didn't have that second bird, I probably win that game, because I did draw the Howling Mine at some point. But that
so my starting hand was the 2 birds and a duress, and then I ripped a second duress. So it was like, it was really kind of, I had all the 1 mana stuff,
which is what you want. It's perfect.
Absolutely. But we talked about this matchup, and the more I looked at the 2 decks that I had available, I'm like, hey, wait, the Fires deck, which I think of as needing to have a bunch of mana for dropping the fatties, it's really it's got the most 1-drops out of all of my decks.
It does. The four birds, like I have to basically draw a bolt because you have 6 mana creatures, and so I need to draw a bolt to kill one of them to get things going, or just you double mulligan into some clunk. And I really thought I did it. My third turn, or my third game hand was pretty good. It was just a Howling Mine short, but I had a lot of ways to cantrip into potential Howling Mines, and I just couldn't put it together. But bird is my downfall. That's pretty much why I'm playing the 4 bolts, just to have half a shot against any kind of aggro bird deck, and it did what it was supposed to do, but just not quite. The first game was a work of art, I must say. We came here to do that. It happened, and I'm just glad I got to do that on camera, because that's what it's all about, really.
I loved that.
The first presentation of Solvitar Springs, and it just like is this well-oiled machine, and everything goes, and we're like, man, maybe we give this a little bit. Maybe this is not just a pipe dream. Maybe this thing is just consistent and good. And I mean, the third game was definitely a good game. I mean, I felt like if the sequence of draws that you had would have been a little bit different, then things could have been, the result of the match could have been flipped. So
yeah, I needed, this deck really needs a Howling Mine to keep things going, and I just drew it too late.
Yeah, the first turn Howling Mine in game 1 was awesome.
Yeah, Ancient Tomb Howling Mine is probably my best possible start, other than maybe like Mox Diamond Land, Pardic Miner into like Howling Mine and something else or whatever. But like really, like that's why the Ancient Tombs are there. They enable the turn 1 Howling Mines and the turn 2 Solfataras. And that's what I was saying before on the pod. I was building all these decks, and every deck I built was like, I think I need some Ancient Tombs in here. I think I need a few more Ancient Tombs in here. And so that's why I think it's one of the more underrated cards, because it's just like every deck, I feel like almost every deck wants a couple at this point, and some want the full 4. I might have even played more than 4 if I could have. It's so important. Little do you know, I was actually playing 6 in my deck. That's why I drew it.
It's okay. I was playing 7 birds. It worked out.
Right.
It felt like it.
No, Brian, those were super great games. Thank you so much.
Yeah, man, that was a blast. It went about according to plan. I'm just glad I got to at least do my thing once on camera to show the world that this is, not quite a real deck, but like, if the stars align, it can do something cool.
Well, it was the fireworks were there, so yeah.
And that was the first game too. It was like, oh my god! It wasn't like, game 2 when I was down on the ropes and I scrambled, but it was just like leading off, absolute perfect draw. It was great, and I had to mulligan it too. I mulliganed a middling draw. It was like slow. It was like Vice into Howling Mine but no acceleration, and I was like, I just don't think so. And then I drew a great one after that. So
yeah. Would you guys talk a little bit about the bans? It's something we didn't ask the previous players, but going into the match, what were your thoughts?
My thoughts were, I know he's going to ban Mind Slicer because it's just the best of my decks. Yeah. Given that, I basically can't beat, neither of my other 2 decks can really beat his Slivers deck. And so, like, this deck has no shot against this Slivers deck because it's all 1s and 2s. And so I had to ban Slivers. And in addition, Slivers is just a generic, powerful aggro control. Like, it's just a pretty good deck. And so that was a pretty easy decision for me. I think he put me on a different ban, though. I think given the ATC talk, he thought I was going to ban Fires and he was going to just run me over with Slivers.
Yeah, absolutely. After listening to the episode, I'm like, great, perfect. He's going to ban Fires, and then I'll just, do exactly that.
So, Mano, was that the reason why you had us on the podcast, so that you could
no reason
to just leak this information to try it?
Yep, that was the whole point. The long time, and it worked. I couldn't capitalize. Yeah, I didn't have any good sideboarding wise. I was considering, like, prop is obviously in a vacuum okay against you, but I'm like, one thing so what's funny is I never play test ever. But I was randomly at Jeff White's. I went up to Syracuse to visit my folks this weekend, and I actually met with Jeff White IRL, and we did practice this match a little bit. I made him build your Fires deck because I knew how the bans were going to work out, and we just played this against Fires. And we played 3 games, and I won the match 2-1. But then we played like 4 or 5 more in a row, and he just rolled me like 4 in a row. So I was like, whatever. But one of the things we learned was that Deed is just absolutely absurd, and as good as propaganda is, I don't think I can commit even more permanence to the board, because if you ever get a deed, I just lose. As sexy as it does sound to like hoodwink your land, Solfatara you, whatever, cast propaganda, it all sounds like a great little game in theory, but once you play a deed, I'm totally fucked.
Yeah, there were a lot of opportunities in game 3 to play the deed that was in my hand. And I kept looking at the board state. I'm like, no, I could surprise him later.
Well, and also you did have the birds and Thunderscape out, so at least it wouldn't have been
exactly
as backbreaking as it would be just killing my vices and
if
mine.
you had recovered faster, it would have been absolutely backbreaking to me, losing my permanents that, would have popped a deed.
To be fair, too, like one of Brian's outs is Words of Wind, and the more power you have on the battlefield, the better. I don't know if you want to start blowing up your own birds at that point, but
exactly.
What about you, Aaron? What were your thoughts coming into the match in terms of the bans?
Like we talked about, I thought for sure that this would be the deck that he banned. So I was looking at what was good against both that weren't this one. And I was figuring I was going to get one of the counterspell decks. And the more I thought about it, the more I didn't want to play Forbidian against birds.
Well, that's why I picked this once you ban the other deck, because if somehow you basically knew that, right? And you knew that birds is really good against your Forbidian deck. Because how do you actually beat a rebel? I don't know how you beat a rebel, but
I don't know either.
Given that, I know that you're going to play the other deck, and so I think I have to play this at that point, because this is better than birds against. You're like 95% to be on fires, I think.
Sure.
So I think this was one of the easier ban games that I played. Like, it didn't seem like there was a lot to it. And I thought this was going to be the matchup from the first moment I saw the pairings, and it was. And it was so close. I just was calling mine away.
Well, Mike can attest to this, and I probably bugged the heck out of him, but I waffled so hard on what deck I was going to play today. Yeah. Like, I was like, that one. No, that one. I've been in Mike's ear all day, like, that one? What's going to look better on stream? I don't know. Whatever. What should I just...
I mean, I'm a chronic waffler, but to me, for once, I didn't have to waffle, because this was an easy one for me. And also I'm biased in that I wanted to see it on stream anyway, so that would have been a nice tiebreaker for me. But even outside of my bias, I think it was a no-brainer.
Yeah. No, it was the matchup that I was fearing, and got through it by the skin of my teeth, really.
Yeah, it was a good one. It was the deck performed better than I thought. It was closer than I thought it was going to be, and it was great. It was awesome.
Well, I don't mean to put Aaron down, but definitely we asked who we were rooting for, and it was nearly unanimous. The Solfatara Springs deck definitely won our hearts. So
after game 1, I said I'm not even mad.
Yeah. The last thing you want is an unbiased commentator. I want to hear your roots. I want to know who you rooted for. I want to be cheering along with the player. Like, you guys did it right.
All right.
Awesome. They were fun to watch. Thanks, guys. I think overall this was a really good inaugural Series 2 night. So thanks again for agreeing to participate, and we'll see you next week.
Absolutely.
Of course. Thanks for having me, man. This was awesome. I appreciate all your hard work.
This
was great.
All right. Thanks, guys.
All right. Later.
Bye.
All right. So, Flint, do we want to talk about what we have in store for the rest of this week? We have,
sure.
I guess you probably don't have it on your screen. I could. We have the remaining 4 players in our Showdown series are going to be playing on Wednesday, and we have Andy Culpepper will be playing against the winner of Premodern Showdown Series 1, Robin Lund, and then closing out.
Champ Lund.
Yes.
Remember.
Yes. And then Anthony Harrison will be battling against Phil Nguyen. And so, what are you looking forward to most for the matches on Wednesday?
Oh man. So again, I'm looking forward to this whole series because of all the creative decks. And I have a special place in my heart for that second match. You know, if you listen to All Things Considered this week, Anthony and I go way back in our pre-modern years in terms of brewing. I love his brewing style and his decks. He's a technical player. And across the virtual table, Phil is an insanely creative player and also a very technical player as well. You know, he does quite well in Legacy from the matches I've seen him play. So I'm really excited about that match. Really, really excited.
Yeah, that's Phil's deck. The one in particular is the Sunder Nick Fit one. That one just hits a lot of chords with me. It seems really awesome. It's almost hard to digest at some points of like what it's trying to accomplish, but I'm hoping it is as exciting as it looks. And given that the way tonight's match went with the Sulfur Springs, it definitely gives me some hope that the decks that definitely felt like they went out on a limb to be really creative or be more ambitious can really perform in a league like this. So yeah, I'm excited. Just to wrap things up, I want to thank everyone who was able to tune in. I know we've been talking about this series for a while now, and we're just excited as you guys have been. And it's really cool to see all the chats coming in during the stream. It seems like a lot of you are enjoying it, and it's cool to see the participation for all you. So we encourage that, keep it up, and we hope to see you on Wednesday where we continue to the series. And Anubis647, thanks for getting in the follow before we end. So hopefully we'll see you on future streams. But is there anything else you want to add, Flint, before we go?
The main thing would just be to kind of plug some of the pre-modern content out there for those of you who maybe are new viewers this season. Be sure to join the Facebook groups, Premodern Magic, Premodern Online Play. There are usually Facebook groups for different countries too, so keep an eye out for those. Tune into the Premodcast where you can hear more about old school Magic. Same with Monster of the Week, All Things Considered. There's a lot of great content out there. We'll do a better job at putting some images up to kind of advertise some of this stuff, but we definitely want to have a shout out for all of the other folks in the community who produce a lot of content and have helped grow the format. So stay tuned for more of that.
Yeah. There's been a lot of more content creators. There's a lot more events. Seems like there's a lot more interest in the pre-modern community, and so it's cool to see everyone supporting it and growing it. So we're all enjoying it. We hope you are too. And until next time, take care, everyone.
Bye, everybody.